Earlier this summer, former Ireland rugby international Fiona Hayes found herself stuck between a rock and a hard place when it came to the world of coaching in the game she loves. This is a situation many women in coaching and coaches in women's sport will have experienced. Accessibility, financial barriers, and lack of opportunities are all challenges that are faced by coaches throughout sport, no matter the gender. But for the women's domain, these challenges are particularly magnified. Hayes has time and time again proved her pedigree within the game, most recently winning back-to-back AIL titles with UL Bohemians in 2024 and 2025. But she found herself stuck between that gap of the viability of sports coaching as a career and the mechanics of how you get the necessary experience to be in a position to pursue it as a full-time venture.
The biggest challenge for me is I've been stuck in the same kind of place. I obviously have a full-time job, so for me to move up to coaching full-time, which is something I've always had interested in, I think it's a huge challenge because maybe there isn't that many roles that are full-time. I think at the minute, in the women's game in particular, there's only a handful. As a female, I find it hard as well to progress in that direction because I'd have to make a complete life change for something that, that it mightn't be there, like as in the jobs mightn't be there full-time. So it's something that's a very challenging part, I think, of coaching.
Hayes then accepted a position as head coach of women's AIL team Old Belvedere, supplementing that with some additional coaching work at the high school in Rathgar. She's taking a 1-year career break from her day job as a youth worker and making the move from Cork to Dublin in order to see if she can kick on another level. More supports are clearly needed to ensure women in coaching and coaches in women's sport continue to flourish in a landscape that's still developing. This is something that Evie Casagrande, who was previously involved with the Ireland women's national football team in a high-performance coaching role, hopes to address. She's the founder of Casagrande Coaching Academy, which launched a 10-month pilot programme in September in a bid to train a new wave of high-performance coaches in women's football, allowing them the space to build their autonomy, confidence and coaching philosophy in a controlled environment. If successful, her idea could serve as a blueprint that other sports could look to.
The problem that we have is if we want to be in women's football, the only roles that are accessible are in the elite game because they're the ones that have the funding. So if I want to be in the grassroots and I'm starting, it's very hard for me to do that with no financial support. And I've been there, I've done that. I did 2 years, 3 years volunteering when I first started. And it was hard. It really helped me. But if I could have a little help and support, and not only financial, but mentorship. Sometimes you're just thrown into the fire and you have no idea what to do. So this program is based on that. It's based on, okay, how can we provide accessibility for roles and supported, mentored accessibility for those young coaches to get into the women's game early on. So then they are not thrown into high elite, professional, high pressure environments that are going to set up them for failure because that's how elite works. It's based on outcome. It's based on results. So that's when you see a lot of coaches burn out. You see a lot of coaches losing that passion for the game, or they go to the men's game because that's when there are roles in the academies that are paid, and they have to do that to get experience. But what if we start kind of providing experience for those coaches early on? So then they understand the ecosystem, then they're supported, they're mentored, and they're like, okay, now I can apply for elite role. And they're not going to tell me, oh, I can't because you lack experience. Because the problem is how I get experience. So you need to help that.
The current lack of structures is one of the key reasons there aren't more women in coaching. But as Dr. Aine MacNamara points out, there are other pinch points too.
I would look at coaching as something that's like a biopsychosocial thing. So like I would see that it isn't necessarily just because women aren't able or women aren't appointed. I think it comes down to motivation of some women, certainly at an elite level. The idea that I wouldn't like to coach at an elite level. I don't want to be away from my family and my kids for 280 days of the year. But also I think there's a societal thing in terms of appointments. Even I see it at grassroots level, right? That loads of women, loads of moms are coaching the under 8s, under 10s, under 12s. And then when things start to get serious at under 14 and 16, there's less representation of women at that level even. And so I think there's a societal thing, maybe a confidence thing for women, and maybe a role modelling thing as well in terms of where they see themselves in that picture.
That role model point is an interesting one, given experience at the elite level of sport in a playing sense is only coming into view from the women's sport perspective in recent years. That passport into coaching is one that is sometimes missing from the female game because it is not as developed to the same level as the men's, Dr. MacNamara says, and it's one Fiona Hayes has experienced firsthand. There's no doubt there's been an evolution in terms of the development of women's sport, but the structures around it are still playing catch-up. To take rugby as an example, the RFU announced the introduction of the first professional contracts for the women's national 15s team in just 2022.
What I seriously think is we as coaches that have been around a long time haven't played the professional game. So the game has now gone professional. So when we were playing, it wasn't that way, or we know there's contracted players. So when people look to push on, so that means we all have jobs or we have different areas. Some have gone into coaching. We see Larissa, she's actually up with the Irish team, which is brilliant. But what I can see is that it's very easy for an ex-professional male rugby player to go straight into that setup because they've played in it, they're absorbed in it, they've been in that environment and haven't worked full time outside of that. So I think as females, because we haven't had that setup, that maybe we're overlooked or thought that we haven't worked in that high performance environment, so we won't be able to do that, which I don't think is correct either. I think if you look at the roles, the jobs, the higher up jobs, it's very rare females are getting those jobs. So if you want to progress and be to the top, it's very hard. There isn't that picture there saying I can go and coach the women's team at the highest level, because that hasn't happened yet. So I feel that maybe if people want to give back to the game, they're going in a referee's direction, certainly the younger players, or just even different roles within a club. But it is something that I've always wanted to see get better.
With that said, Aine Casagrande is all too well aware that while there's an inherent tendency to compare women's sport to men's, there's not an intrinsic need to copy it. It is, she outlines, important to make sure that there's an individual women's ecosystem supporting both male and female coaches in their journey through the women's game.
Yeah, I think, as we are building a women's ecosystem that is a little bit different than the men's in terms of female physiology, in terms of how young girls were supported through that development. For example, you see a lot of academies where boys have the access to clubs and teams from an early stage, have more support, have more maybe coaching personnel. They're more funding there. And then the girls, you almost actually have to catch up very quickly. And that's why I think when you get young girls to go to elite very quickly, and they struggle in terms of mentally, in terms of injuries, that's where we're trying to change. It's like, if we can get someone at U11 and really support them to know how to take care of their bodies, to have the mental resilience to withstand those different pressure points. Like if you go in a team, like most of the girls, because of lack of funding compared to the men's, and we're not just blaming the men's. This is not what it's all about. It's kind of, we're trying to create a better sustainable based on our environment and our history of the women's game, and kind of from, not being able to play and having those things to now having to fight for all this. So it's a different kind of thing. So bringing that female physiology and bringing that understanding of the woman's body, but also dealing with different pressures now.
Some things in coaching remain fundamental, no matter your gender. And so perhaps the best way to move forward, alongside investment, is to continue engaging with stakeholders about coaching pathways and encourage an open network of communication and exchange of ideas.
I just felt like it's great to have a community of females that you can bounce stuff off of as well. mills as well. Like any sort of coach, you learn something off every single coach you meet, good or bad. You'll always learn something. So I think even in soccer, cricket, anything like that, for females to be able to come together as coaches and discuss stuff that's going on, or just understanding player. I think that's the thing when it comes to the heartbeat of coaching. It's not about the actual game. It's about how you can make that person feel special enough, or how you can push them to their limits as a coach and get the best and understand what they need. So that's across every single sport.
This video is part of the Same But Different series, looking at what sets women's sport apart. For more, you can follow the series on the Irish Independent.